Today, we're answering your questions about local foods. Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table. Today we are going to be talking all about our common local foods questions. Now there might be several of these questions I've already answered in our previous episodes, but it's always good to talk about them again just in case maybe you didn't hear it before, and to really address some of those common issues or common questions that we just think about when we're thinking about local foods. We do have several ingredients that you should be able to find locally still. So squash and zucchini are still in season, as are some tomatoes. Typically our larger tomatoes go out of season, and our cherry tomatoes are still in season, but you may still find some large tomatoes that are on sale and affordable. So what we're making today is a chicken spaghetti dish. This is from My Plate's mixing bowl recipes. And then we also are going to be making a crispy vegetable pancake, which sounds so delicious to me. So we'll go ahead and get started with our chicken spaghetti. This will take about 20 to 30 minutes to bake in the oven. So we want to jump on that and get that done right away. I already have our pasta cooked. I used whole wheat pasta here to get some of those whole grains in. So you only need about 4 ounces of pasta. And then we are going to chop up our vegetables in there. So first thing is our squash, and I like to cut the neck off of that, and then I always do both ends. I'm gonna actually just chop this up into small pieces and not stir fry it like the recipe says. And I switched this up because I wanted to use stuff that is in season right now. So the recipe actually calls for bell peppers, which we think of commonly in spaghetti type recipes, but they're not in season right now and they can be a little bit more expensive. So I decided to go the route of what we had, what was on sale at the store that is a local food, and stick to that route. So remember, you can always adapt recipes to be more local friendly using those local foods. So we're just gonna chop these into tiny pieces. And you could cook these if you want them to be really cooked through. Like I said, I'm just gonna chop it into smaller, kind of bite-sized pieces. And that way, hopefully they'll cook pretty well when they're in the oven. And we won't have to worry about heating them up ahead of time. If you want to make sure they're cooked really, really well, you could just saute them in a pan before throwing it all in your larger baking pan to cook in the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna mix all this stuff together and dump it in an 8x8 pan. So I'm just gonna throw it in with my spaghetti because that's where we'll mix it. So one of the common questions we get about local foods is, are local foods the same as organic foods? And local foods are not always organic foods. So this just depends on the farmer's practices. So if you're purchasing from a farmer or a local producer, you could always ask them what their practices are. If they're certified organic, there is a certification process they have to go through in order to be considered an organic farmer. So they might not have that certification, and that is perfectly okay. That is up to you. That is the consumer's choice whether you want to purchase organic or not. So if you are looking for that, make sure that you just chat with your farmer or local producer and see, how what their farming practices are, and start to try to build that relationship with them. That's really easy to do if you are buying directly from the farmer. And we can't always do that. It depends on, of course, where you're getting your local foods from. We have tons of farm stands here in Sampson County, Duplin County, Bladen County, all across the Southeast. There's lots of farmer stands. We don't have quite as many farmers markets. So just make sure that if you're stopping at those stands, you could ask questions and start building that rapport with them. Our next question we get a lot is local produce more expensive than the food that you buy at the grocery store? And a lot of times, if you're actually stopping at a farm stand or something like that, you typically do get a pretty good deal on local foods, local produce, than what you get in the grocery store. Now, that's not always the case, but most of the time you do get a pretty good deal. So it also just depends on what you're buying and, of course, how they produce their food. So like I said, if they're an organic farmer, their produce may be a little bit more expensive than your non-organic produce that you might buy at the grocery store. So kind of goes back to that first question. So I'm doing the same thing here with my zucchini as what I did with my squash, just chopping it up in those smaller little bite-sized pieces. I'm gonna finish this zucchini up and we'll see you guys back in just 1 second to finish making our spaghetti.
Introducing the Star Communications app. All the tools you need in one convenient location. You can access Watch TV everywhere. Check local channel lineup. Check your Star email. View and pay your Star bill. Report troubles. Use your Star security app. Check your home voicemail. Sign up for CrowdFiber. Check your Wi-Fi speed. The list keeps going and going. Download for free from the App Store or Google Play.
Hey guys, welcome back. So we have our squash and zucchini done. I went ahead and chopped up an onion. To go ahead and get that out of the way, we have 1 whole onion. This one was pretty big. Probably could have done like a half of that or a medium-sized onion. But I enjoy onions, so we'll stick with the whole thing. And then next we have our tomatoes. Now our recipe actually calls for diced tomatoes. So if it is not, if you're trying to make this recipe and we don't have tomatoes in season, you can opt to do diced, canned tomatoes, I'm sorry. So our key is eating healthy. Our overall goal is to eat healthy. So whether that is fresh local foods or things like canned or frozen, if they're not in a lot of sodium or sugar, then those are great options. It doesn't necessarily have to be local to be a healthy choice. But when we buy local, we can usually save a little bit of money. And we also are choosing some of those items that are going to help support our local farmers, which is always great. So I'm just using these fresh tomatoes and I'll chop them into kind of those diced pieces. And I went for 2 tomatoes instead of the recipe calls for, of course, that can. So if you are deciding to use fresh, then probably about 1 to 2 would be an appropriate amount. So kind of along those same lines of what is our best choice, is local, another question we get a lot is local food healthier for us than non-local food? And the answer is actually, there's not a lot of difference between you choosing that local produce versus you choosing produce that's maybe in the grocery store. However, a lot of research does show that those who choose local foods more frequently do have lower rates of diabetes, individual weight loss. We also see lower body mass index. So the research does show that those who choose local foods tend to have those types of kind of feedback. So those are all good things, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that because they ate a local food, like local tomatoes, they're healthier than if they were to choose a tomato grown from another state. So, still a great choice when we start to think about the economy and what we get from supporting our local farmers. We get a lot of benefits there as well. So it's not just in terms of choosing local foods for our health, it's also what it gives back to our community. We also see those who choose local foods more often tend to eat more of a variety of vegetables. And their children tend to eat more vegetables as well. And we know that by choosing more fruits and vegetables, we can have a healthier lifestyle. We get more health impacts from choosing those fresh fruits and vegetables. Well, fruits and vegetables in general, canned and frozen, of course, is okay as well. So in general, we want to be eating more fruits and vegetables. So if you're eating local and that helps to encourage you to eat more of these things, by all means, that is a great choice. All right, so up next, I've got some chicken. So this is already cooked. Just chicken breast. I used garlic powder, salt, and pepper to season this. So just really whatever you want to do. I'd stick to something basic if you are cooking this. You could also get chicken that's already pre-cooked at the grocery store if you want to go that route. I put this in the Instant Pot and just cooked, it was about 3 pounds of chicken, and it took like 10 minutes. So very quick and easy if you don't want to go through the hassle of baking it or sauteing it. And chicken is actually one of our top things that we produce here in Sampson County. So you could possibly be having local chicken if you're buying that from your grocery store. All right, our last couple things that we're gonna do, we have 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. So we'll pour all of that in there. Almost got it going off. And I'm using a spatula to help get that all out. And then we just have some cheese and some pepper. So we want half a cup of cheddar cheese and about 1/4 cup of Parmesan. So that's not quite half a cup. I had to buy an extra bag. Just remember to get that reduced fat if you are choosing that. Now you could use a local cheese here as well. Cheddar cheese is not something I think we have a ton of local cheese. We do tend to get things like goat cheese a little bit more frequently locally here. So keep that in mind, but you do have some other options as well. And our Parmesan. So this is just 1/4 cup. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of pepper and a sprinkle of salt. And we're gonna mix this all together, throw it in our pan, and get it in the oven. We'll see you guys back in just a second once we've got that all done.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Hey guys, welcome back. So I have mixed all of our mixture together, thrown it in our pan. Now I did have to adjust this a little bit. So I used 1 whole zucchini and 1 whole squash, and both of those were on the larger side. And those were in place of bell peppers, which are, of course, are gonna be a lot smaller. So we actually have more vegetables to to pasta and chicken ratio here, but that is why we had to up our pan. So I switched to a 13 by 9 pan. The recipe calls for an 8 by 8 pan. So you adjust, make this your own. I think it'll be really good with that squash and zucchini in it. And again, using those local foods is the key here, is our goal, is trying to incorporate some of those to help save a little bit of money when we're shopping in the grocery store as well. So that is done, looks good. It's all mixed together, and then, I spread it nicely in our pan. So I'm just gonna take my aluminum foil and cover it here, and we're gonna bake it for 20 minutes in the oven. And then we'll remove that foil and we'll bake it for another 10. So it's about 30 minutes total baked in the oven. You could make this ahead of time, put it in the refrigerator, and then bake it the next day. So this is a really good one to do ahead of time. So I'm gonna throw it in our oven real quick. And our oven is on 350. So we'll let that do its thing for 20 minutes. We'll check back in on it in a little bit. We're gonna shift over now to our next food, which is gonna be crispy vegetable pancakes. This one's really good because you can definitely adjust it to be more of those local foods if you want to. And it's really good for this time of year because we have tons of cabbage in season. So if you are trying to find different ways that you can use that cabbage, first off, I love cabbage because it's a simple food that you can really throw into all different kinds of stuff. You could throw it into a stir fry, you could throw it into a spaghetti dish, you could also chop it up and make it more into some type of slaw. Or you could do like we are today and make these vegetable pancakes. So very versatile. It doesn't have kind of an overwhelming flavor. I feel like it can adapt to lots of different flavor profiles. So what we're gonna do, I do not have a food processor, so I'm just gonna be chopping this up into kind of smaller pieces. Now, I do have some kind of bad pieces on the end of my cabbage here. You can just go ahead and cut that off, perfectly fine. Put it in a compost or discard it. And I did remove like the 2 outer leaves. So you do want to remove a little bit of that outer exterior. You do have to have a nice sharp chef's knife for this, as you can see. Also, which we might try this for another episode, I've heard cabbage steaks are really yummy as well. You can chop them just like this into these larger pieces and then grill them and just throw them like that with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and I've heard they are really, really tasty. I have not tried it yet personally, but I've heard good things. So if you do have a food processor, want to go that route, you could. If you also want to buy it pre-chopped, you could. However, most of the time when we're buying local, we don't tend to have it all chopped up like that. So just keep that in mind when you're buying in the grocery store. Or if you're buying it from a farmer or at a farm stand, it's likely not going to be chopped up all finely. So another question that we get a lot that I think is pretty common is in regards to, is local food better for the environment? And this is kind of a common, what I'd call myth, because people think if they're buying it right here, it's got to be better for the environment because it's not traveling. When you're thinking about food miles, how far that food has traveled. And actually, transportation only accounts for about 11% of greenhouse gases. So it's not a huge amount. And typically what we're concerned more about is the amount, efficiency, rather than distance. So if you can efficiently get a good amount of food transported efficiently rather than just how far it's traveled, it can reduce those emissions more so than the distance. So that is kind of a common misconception, is that people think, well, it hasn't had to travel quite as far, so it's better for me. That's not always the case. So we actually just need about 2.5 cups of this. And I think I'm actually there. So I think that's good. We're gonna save this. I'll chop up the rest of this later on, and we'll save the rest of this, throw it in your crisper drawer in your refrigerator, and it should stay good for about a week. Definitely wanna make sure your fridge is at that proper temperature, which is 41 degrees or less, to keep it for longer in your, store it for longer in your refrigerator. So we'll see you guys back in just 1 second to finish our mixture and get these on the stovetop, and we'll finish this up.
After completing my contract, I still have to buy out of it? Come on. Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping home secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody try to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
All right, so we've got our coleslaw all chopped up. Next up, we have green onions, and these are in season right now as well. So you can hopefully find these in at either a farmer's market, a food stand, or your local grocery store, and just look for those words that say local. Should be a little sign that says local. Or maybe you have a garden and you've got these right outside in your garden. So I'm just gonna chop these up pretty well. And then we have just carrots and flour and a little bit of seasonings, and then we'll kind of patty those and throw them into our pan. I do have about 3 to 4 tablespoons of oil. You do want a decent amount of oil in these because we want to fry them up. We are using olive oil for this recipe. Any type of vegetable oil would be ideal, just because it is going to be that unsaturated fat oil, which is key. That's pretty good. I'm going to add some carrots. I just bought the pre-chopped carrots here, but you could absolutely chop those up yourself. And then we have 1/3 cup of flour. So make sure that and we need to add our seasoning. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. So we've just got about 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, salt, and garlic powder. So I'm gonna sprinkle this all in there. We're just gonna sprinkle some salt. And you could adjust these seasonings to make it, whatever you enjoy. I love garlic powder. It's one of my favorite seasonings. I either use that or fresh garlic every time. Okay. And our flour, this is about 1/3 cup of flour. And then we're just gonna mix that all together. Now, another common question that we get in regards to local foods is local foods safer than non-local foods? And some people may be concerned about this in terms of the fact that non-local foods might have to travel, again, going back to that distance if it's traveling a little bit further. But it doesn't matter the size of the farm. Food safety is a critical issue to all farms. So whenever you're kind of working with a farmer or working directly with the farmer, you have access to a farmer, you could chat with them about their food safety practices and what they do. I'm sure they would be more than happy to talk to you about that, because they have to follow certain guidelines in order to sell their foods anyway. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we're just adding 2 eggs. And I'm gonna Get those mixed up and then just toss that all in. And mix that all together one last time. So that way it'll kind of bind together. And then we will kind of patty them up about 2 tablespoons at a time and throw them in our pan. So what I'm gonna do is just use a large spoon, smaller than the one I was using, but kind of drop that in. It is a little bit messy, but man, it is so good. And you're just gonna cook those about 2 to 3 minutes per side. So this is a great way to kind of use a variety of vegetables, do something a little bit different and get that nice savory flavor. You could also use local eggs, so farm fresh eggs. If you have access to those, you may know somebody with chickens. I feel like it's pretty common around here for folks to have a coop in their backyard. So you could absolutely go that route. So there's lots of ways that you can utilize local foods for both of these recipes. The other thing that I want to chat about is buying local foods good for the economy? And it is. What they find is that a lot of people who are buying from farmers markets, they're tending to shop around not only just at that market, they're going to other local stores right around that area. So I think about, we have a farmers market in downtown Clinton. There's tons of stores down there as well. So maybe you go to the farmers market and then you stop to go get a coffee at one of the local shops. So it's a way that you're spreading that money throughout our local businesses and helping to support that local economy. So that was a little bit early. We want 2 to 3 minutes. I might have to turn my heat up. This stovetop gets really hot. Just want to show you guys what they look like once they are all done. But they're kind of remind me of fritters. So if you've ever had vegetable fritters or potato fritters, kind of remind me of that. But it's a great way to get those vegetables in. So what we'll do is we'll finish these up. We'll show you guys exactly what these look like along with our spaghetti dish at the end of this. And hope that you guys enjoy this. Hope this answered all of your local foods questions. And we'll see you guys back next time at the Table.